Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is. It is, yeah.
Okay, all right. So, so we shall be continuing from where we left last week, right? So last week we, briefly discussed about what is social media, what is social media marketing, why is social media marketing important, and then we also touched upon some of the nuances of content planning, content calendar planning, and then we also saw quite a bit of examples of how brands are leveraging social media for in the right way. And we also touched upon a bit of social media listening, social listening. How is it important? And we also, you know, also went through some of the, very very recent examples of, brands getting into a soup because of, something that they had done on social media, and then because of users' response on social media, probably they had to take some actions on that. So we covered in a nutshell, like I said, most of the planning related aspects, and then we also covered a bit of content, and we also very briefly touched upon organic versus paid reach, and we also saw that the organic reach has been dwindling. So for this particular class, majorly we will focus, or like probably we will focus a lion's share of our time, getting to social media advertising, and we will also go through the tool, right? So we will together go through Facebook Ads Manager. How do we set up those ads? What are some of the things that we definitely should keep in mind? Some of the do's and don'ts, and we will get a very very broad level sense of how exactly should we be approaching social media advertising. And other than advertising, I also want to cover, how do brands actually leverage collaboration in the right way? Because other than paid advertising, there are a lot of other ways by which, brands can deploy their budgets on social media, and then they can get the results coming in from that. So we will also spend a bit of time to, go through some of the collaborations and, how have brands activated so-called networks on social media to kind of like also leverage and get the results that they have always desired for, right? And before we move on to the next slide, for some of the people who may not have joined the last class, I just wanted to give a quick introduction about myself. Yeah, so I am currently a digital marketing professional working with iQuanti. It is a digital marketing agency, and I have had past stints as digital marketing lead for companies like AB InBev, which happens to be the parent company of beer brands like Budweiser, Corona, Hogarden. And I used to lead digital marketing for Puma as well, in my past stints. So I come with like close to about 10 years of experience now. But out of those 10, 7.5 of those have been towards digital marketing, and then the other 2.5 that has gone towards, handling overall business operations, and a couple of years of technical experience. All right. So just like, always, we need to go through the agenda. So the agenda for today's class will be, so we will take a look at the paid activations. What are some of the ways by which brands, activate, social media through paid budgets, and then we will see the different pillars within that. So like, let's say we are going to uncover, paid activations through advertising. We are going to talk about paid activations through collaborations. And then, towards the end, we are going to summarize all of these things together, and then we will say as to how exactly do you go about holistic campaign planning on social media for you to get the maximum results. Okay, so getting into paid activations, right? So a lot of us have this kind of a, or how do I put it? So a lot of us believe that, when you think about probably paid advertising is the only way by which you can get results in social media. But when you look at the overall paid activations piece in social media as a platform, you have paid advertising, which is a significant portion. But other than that, also see a lot of collaborations which happen, and then those collaborations could be through the format of content, and then those collaborations can also be through the form of, like, let's say, network collaborations. It could be influencer collaborations as well. So we are going to cover each of these, levers that we are currently seeing here in greater detail in the subsequent slides, right? So moving into paid activations through advertising, right? So so the first starting point, like whenever we think of, advertising on social media, we always begin with an objective, right? So what exactly is our objective? What are we using this platform for? And what is the business result that we wish to drive from here? And, everything starts from that particular phase wherein we start and lock down the objective first, and then look at, okay, so what are the logical pieces that need to fit into the bigger picture so that, like, we can get our objective fulfilled through social media advertising, right? So some of the common objectives that we usually see on social media, for like a part of this we covered in the last class as well. But, once again summarizing for everybody here. So brand awareness could be a massive objective on social media. You could look at driving traffic or driving landing page views onto the page. So that could be another objective. Video views, right? Many brands, they do a lot of storytelling through their videos. Videos are a great way to communicate your brand messaging and also drive your brand's narrative. And you could also choose social media as a platform to push forward some of your brand messaging through short format videos, of course. So video views also could be a major objective for brands in social media. Engagement, of course. So this goes without saying that across all of the other objectives, engagement would be a secondary objective, because whatever you do, no matter whatever is the objective, if people are not responding to your communication, then that becomes a one-way broadcasting rather than a two-way communication or a two-way conversation. So engagement would always be a secondary objective, but some of the brands could use that or probably double down on that particular objective to have engagement as the primary objective. So even that also is available for social media. And then, of course, last but not the least is conversion. So you could look at your website conversion. You could also look at driving retail conversions or offline conversions from social media. So that particular piece as an objective is also available for you to drive through social itself. Right? So some thought starters here, so when you look at traffic or landing page views, are these not necessarily the two things, right? Because we are talking about driving website traffic, or we are talking about driving landing page views. But if you look at Facebook, or probably you deep dive a little bit further, you also realize that probably Facebook allows you to choose both of these as let's say separate optimization events. So quick sense check. Can one of you tell me what are the difference? What do you think is the difference between traffic and landing page views, and why has Facebook sort of use these as two different pieces when both of these could mean one and the same? Any guesses?
Yeah, so basically by traffic, I think Facebook what will be mostly be doing is going to get as much as traffic to the page as possible. So it is more of awareness of your website. But for landing page use, Facebook will try to take as relevant people as possible to your landing page who might convert further on the same.
Okay. Good observation. Good point. Anybody else wants to take a shot at this? Guys, let us make this session interactive. I don't want it to be more.
Yeah, guys, please be interactive. Neha, you want to add? Rupesh, Shabir.
Okay. No worries. I think that was quite a thoughtful answer, and to a certain extent, you're right. But the basic difference, like how Facebook differentiates between these two, is because you will also need to set up a Facebook pixel, and that pixel needs to be there on the website for Facebook to track everything that is happening beyond that click on Facebook, right? So technically speaking, when you talk about driving traffic to the website, and if your pixel because of some or the other reason is not set rightfully or not set properly, so in that case, you could still choose driving traffic as let's say as an optimization event without having the pixel set up correctly. So in that case, what is Facebook going to take is Facebook is going to treat all the clicks that happen on your website creative, all the clicks that happen on your ad creative. So that is something which Facebook will take that as synonymous to the traffic that you would be driving, because the pixel itself is not in place, right? So that's why Facebook would still allow you to have that kind of an optimization event, wherein for traffic, it will maximize the number of clicks on your ads. And by clicks, I mean the number of outbound clicks, which take you out of Facebook and then jump into your website, right? But when it comes to landing page views, and then if you are optimizing for landing page views, without having the pixel implemented on the website, you will not be able to use landing page views as an optimization event. And if your pixel is set up properly, Facebook will always know that which are the people who are landing on your actual website. Because a lot of times the number of people who click on the ad is not going to be the same as the number of people who eventually land on the page, because there could be a lot of accidental clicks. A lot of people, they might have clicked just for the sake of clicking it, and then they realize that now they're getting out of Facebook, so probably they just close the session even before they land on the website. So the basic difference that Facebook takes it is, if the pixel is not implemented, take traffic as synonymous to your banner clicks or banner outbound clicks, and landing page is something wherein Facebook is going to track and assess that which are the people who clicked on the ad, they are finally coming onto the landing pages, and then it is going to optimize for like, let's say, more quality traffic, which is very rightly pointed out by consideration, right? So okay, so this is one, and then we are seeing, like, let's say, like we have these many different kinds of objective, and then this, by the way, is not exhaustive. While we do the tool demo, you'll be able to see all of the exhaustive list of objectives that you have available for Facebook. Now, in terms of conversion, right? Because so what would Facebook look for is, like, let's say, any kind of website action. It need not just be website purchase. So you can actually tell Facebook as to what exactly do you want to track as conversions, and then accordingly, Facebook will help you maximize that particular action which you have tagged as conversions on the website, right? And I also told you that, like, within conversion, you could also have online conversion as well as offline conversion. So and then you also get, like, let's say, different kind of creative formats, right? You could choose to roll with videos, you could choose to roll with carousels, you could choose to roll with GIFs, you could choose to roll with images, you could choose to roll with even your blog links as well, right? So, like, to drive conversions. So one quick sense check. So what do you think? Like, what type of creatives usually augur well conversion? Because I'm not saying that this is something which is going to be there for all of the brands put together, but can you give me a sense on, like, do videos fare the best, or like do statics fare the best, or like do GIFs have a better chances of, like, getting us more conversion at, like, let's say, cheaper cost, or like if at all we are looking at conversion and driving ROAS from our ads, which is return on ad spends, which kind of formats work best for conversion? Any guesses here? Sorry, I heard someone saying something there, but I missed out.
Yeah, I think as per my observation, video ads are the best performing creative types for mostly any type of campaign, especially like lead generation or for conversions.
Okay.
Followed by single image. And compared to all the ad creatives, carousels are the ones which usually get results at a much higher cost compared to video and single image ads.
Okay. And then you have done this for which categories?
I've done it for multiple categories, maybe for real estate, maybe for something like a restaurant as well.
Okay.
Also for a financial website.
Okay. All right. So as I said, right, because, like, there's no one size fits all kind of a thing which can, like, works across categories, works across brands. But across my experience of having worked with mobile handsets to fashion and lifestyle to CPG as well, for that matter, we have seen carousels doing better as compared to statics. And though videos drive a lot of engagements, in terms of driving engagement rate and all of those things, you would see videos doing, like, let's say, really well, because videos also tag in your 3-second video views as engagements, and that's why you see your engagement rate shoot up like crazy every time you use videos. But especially when you look at driving conversions or driving actions on the website, usually statics or carousels seem to have worked for me. But, like, as I rightly said, like, there is no one size fits all, and that is something which is the beauty of social media or beauty of digital marketing. You need to keep trying yourself to look at what is working, what is not working for your category and for your DG, and then accordingly keep making those changes, and then keep learning and experimenting. So many times you may see that, like, one particular ad format, it has worked for some reason. So once you are able to understand and appreciate that particular reason, you would be able to maximize on that particular piece and then deliver better value coming out of that creative. But otherwise, like, if you look at the overall sense, right, because, like, I have also seen this happening for some of the BFS clients that I'm currently handling, plus ecom again. So more and more, like, what we are seeing is carousels or statics are currently sort of, like, also doing better. But, like, that is something which is basis my experience. But yeah, but it's quite interesting to also hear a different point of view. All right. So let us move on.
Susovan, can you be a little slow? What you
Okay.
is saying? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So Rumpi, it will be good if you just, like, keep telling me on about the chats and all, because this is a little unfriendly to me, because I have to keep moving this chat here and there.
I'll do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll do that. No risk.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So one is chat, and then the second thing, of course, time checking as well, which is pretty important. So please help me, like, wherever. So we are running short of time.
Sure,
and, like, if there is something. Okay.
Sure.
All right. So now coming out of the common ad formats, so, like, what we see, especially across the board, is we have single image ads. So what a single image ads is, you just like push one particular image and then you have a description. So this example that we have on the screen here, this is an example of carousal ad, which is nothing but like, let's say, a group of images tagged together, and then you can go up to 10 images within a carousel ad. And what you can have over here is a description, or like let's say is a post description which you give over here, and then you also have the individual card headline, card description as well, right? And what you could do is you could link each of these cards to different URLs on the website. So this is a very good way of showcasing a range, of showcasing a collection. If you are a fashion e-com brand, and let's say you sell everything starting from shoes to tops to bottoms to, like, let's say, outerwear to, like, let's say, your all of your different categories. So what you could do is you could club all of your separate categories into, like, let's say, each of those individual cards, and then you could talk about these categories as well. And the biggest advantage is when someone sees this ad, if that person is really interested to go through, like, let's say, some of the other pieces that you have on your website, they can simply flip through, and then they can actually take a look at, like, let's say, all of the different collections that you have. And if something really interests them, then they can click on that and then go on to your website. So what we have seen is, like, probably this is something which also increases the likelihood of getting clicks on your ads and then taking that relevant traffic onto the website. So so that's an example of carousel. So now, what is a single image ad, right? So just like in case of carousel, we can club up to 10 different images. For single image, it is just one image. So you will not see these two other images that you see over here. You just see like one image, then you will have the description, you will have the headline, and then you will have the, like, let's say, your card description, and that's it, right? And then you're done. And then similarly for your short videos, you could also have one singular short video as an ad, and then you can roll with it as well, right? And especially on the carousels, carousels will also offer you the choice to go with a mix of statics as well as video. So what you do is, it is up to you as to how many videos do you want or how many statics do you want, but then you can club those also together, and then so, like, put out one single carousel ad, and then you can launch that also as an ad set. And so other than this, one very beautiful thing about carousels is it allows you to also choose an option which tells Facebook that Facebook needs to push the best performing card first, right? Because currently what is happening is you are putting up up to 10 different cards. You may or may not know as to which card is going to fare the best, like in terms of driving user engagements, in terms of driving user clicks, or let's say if your objective is conversions, and Facebook sees that card number 3 is something which is like definitely doing much better than the other cards. So Facebook can automatically push your card number 3 to the first card, right? So that, like, people don't have to scroll 2 cards, to see your best performing cards, and that is something which can come by, and that is something which can come by default as the first card. And then this is something which is extremely dynamic. So as and when some other creative does well, and then, like, if that is something which is doing the best, so in that case that gets pushed up the order, and then the other ones, like I say, which are not faring that well, they can like push, they can get pushed down the order, so that you maximize your chances of driving as much conversion, so like as much of your objective that you're choosing to the carousel itself, right? So you have got these kind of advanced features which are available. Then so other than those formats, we also have dynamic ads. Okay, so what is dynamic ads? So what does dynamic ads do? Now, just again taking the example of an e-commerce brand. So what they can do is they can always have a product feed, right? So and what is the product feed? Like, let's say if I have 100 different products that I sell on my website, I can always create a feed of those 100 products, or like, say, I can always create a feed of maybe 50 out of those 100 products which I want to push, right? So on this feed, I will include only those products which I want to advertise on social media. And then what Facebook does is Facebook picks up the images and Facebook picks up the other details from that particular feed, and then it shows those as ads on social media. So these ads are like extremely dynamic because I'm not feeding any individual creative onto the system, but then I am asking Facebook to pick up the creative from the feed and then roll with it. And why are we saying that this is dynamic? Because just like the creative seeking itself is automated, you could also choose to retarget this to people who have already visited some page of yours, or like you could also choose to retarget this to people who have put one particular product in the cart, but then they have not made the final purchase. So in that case, that person is going to see only that he has already viewed or the product detail page that person has gone on to, so that that relatability is there. And then so that is something which is definitely going to boost up his chances of like clicking back on the ad and then going to the website and then completing the process, right? So that is dynamic retargeting ads. But the basics of dynamic ads is you don't feed any kind of static creatives to the system, but then the system automatically picks it up from the product feed, right? And okay, so that was dynamic ads. So now what is dynamic creative ads? So dynamic creative ads is nothing but so dynamic creative ads kind of like allows you to push, let's say, a group of 5 different images, but it is not like carousel, because what happens is in a carousel you see all of the 5 images stacked next to each other, and then you can flip through those cards, and then if you like you can click on any of those cards and go to the website. But in case of dynamic creative ads, you can tell the system that, okay, I don't want to run it as a carousel, but I want to test out, like, let's say these are the 5 different images. I want to run individual image ad, right? So I want to run singular image ad, but I don't want to tell the system which image I want to run. And I want the system to choose basis, whichever is performing the best. So what happens is, like, you give those 5 natives to the system. You also give, 5 different headlines, and also, like, it's a different combinations of descriptions. But one thing that you need to ensure is, like, all of these headlines should go with like any of these descriptions, because then what Facebook will do is Facebook is going to pick, one creative and then combine that with one headline and one description. And then it is going to test out which combination is doing the best, right? And then accordingly, it is going to maximize the combination which has proven, or like which has driven the best results for you at the given cost, right? So basically, dynamic creative ads just takes that additional effort of doing that analysis at your part, and rather it would let Facebook do that assessment from, like, let's say, from the different creatives, from the headlines and the description that you. So think of a dynamic creative ad as a modular ad, right? So you are not designing the entire ad yourself. You're just like giving in the inputs. You're giving the creatives, you're giving the headlines, you're giving the description, and then depending on whichever combination works the best, that gets pushed the most, and then you would be able to see, like, let's say, your performance improvement over time, as and when the machine keeps learning about the performance of each of those combinations. And then over a period of time, you see the best performing combination gets pushed the most, right? And similarly, on these lines, you would also see something called as canvas ads. I see one of these hyper. Yes, I think this is the one which is hyper. Sorry. So you saw that, right? So what is a canvas ad or an instant experience ad? So what does it do is, like, let's say you are browsing through your feed and then you see that ad. So you can choose to click on that ad, and the moment you click on that ad, so Facebook takes that as a permission from your side to take a full screen takeover. So the first thing that happens is, the moment you click on that ad, as you saw in this video, you had a complete screen experience. So it will be a full screen experience. It is definitely a much more visually enriching experience as compared to, like, some of the other formats, because they would still be running like on a certain portion of the screen, but then this takes over the entire screen. That is one. And then the second thing is, you also get a lot of freedom and flexibility to kind of like do your storytelling. Just like how you saw that you could take people through a, like, let's say, through a moving trajectory sort of a thing, where they could like flip through to look at your images. You can also include videos within this, so that, like, people can also take a look at that. So what it does is, within, without leaving the Facebook ecosystem. So all of these things happen inside the Facebook ecosystem, but it gives you a full experience, and then it is a much more visually enriching, and engaging format, because then you could include carousels, you could include videos, you could also do much better storytelling, because that's a full screen takeover at the end of the day. And what we have seen is usually whenever we use these kind of ad formats, the engagement rates are like much better as compared to, like, let's say, the regular ads that you see. And many a times the kind of click-through rates or the CTRs that you see on the ads, which take people onto the website, because like since all of this happens within the Facebook ecosystem itself, so like we could still track as to how much of this traffic have you managed to take onto the landing page, right? And then Facebook will clearly tell you that like this is what has been the user journey so far. So it is a brilliant way of doing your brand building exercises, and then you can do your storytelling through instant experience ads, right? And then another format, which is a relative new format. So this was not there before, but I think this was launched sometime last year. Is a branded content promotion site, right? So what does it do is, so you can see the image on the right. So this image is by uh, an influencer, and she had posted this on her handle. So like this was a branded post. So like there was a brand tie-up or brand collaboration with the influencer, right? And the brand is Jack in the Box. So what you see is, the influencer is definitely talking about, some post around Jack in the Box, and this is a regular post by the influencer, right? So earlier, brands did not have the choice to use this post itself as a creative and then promote this post to kind of like get more eyeballs, to get more reach, to get more. But starting 2020, we could do this as well. So which means that I think it was sometime in later half of 2019, not 2020, my bad. So now brands also can do this. So for this, what you need to do is you just like need to you know add the influencer as your branded content partner, and she also needs to sort of like approve that particular request. And once that piece is done, we can take you know all of the approvals and rights from her account, and then we can use this particular post itself, and then we can promote this post as a brand creator, right? And what are the advantages of doing this? Because like we get to leverage the influencer's popularity. So initially we can wait for getting all of the results that the influencers bringing from her side by putting it up on her platform, and then we use this as an ad, kind of expand the reach beyond the influencers followers, to kind of expand the reach beyond her engaged users, and then we can take on to, like, let's say, multiple other segment of users, then we can drive results coming, right? And that's why we also see branded content promotion is a very, very strong way of promoting ads, which are, like, let's say, the influencers partnered content, right? And the best part is branded content promotion ads allow you all kinds of objectives, right? So if you want to drive brand awareness, or if you want to drive engagement, you can do that, and then you can get like very attractive cost per engagement to branded content promotion. Or if you want to drive, like, let's say, more reach, you can also choose to do that, and then you see that your cost per reach, which you usually get from branded content promotion, will be much cheaper versus, like, let's say, some of the other posts that you use. So this is a brilliant way for, like, let's say, brands to leverage on the influencer partnerships or the influencer tie-ups that they do, and get more of the influencer collaborations that they have. All right. Yeah. So now that we have seen, like, let's say, quite a bit of the common used ad formats, I just also wanted to spend some time on A/B testing, because this is also like another interesting feature that Facebook has, wherein you can split your budget into various test cases, and then it could be, like, let's say, an A/B testing mode that you set up. So what is the process of doing this? Is your budget is split into test cases, and then you test the performance of these ads on one factor, right? So sorry. So the basic rule, or the basic ground rule for A/B testing, is that it lets you test your performance on just one factor. So two different creatives, both the different creatives will have just like one factor which will be changed. Just to give an example, you can have a creative, and then you are just changing maybe one particular color, probably the color of the button or the CTA that you want to test. So you could just like make that change, and then the rest of the creative still remains the same. And then you could do a test by reaching out to a similar kind of an audiences. And what happens is then Facebook analyzes the results for statistical significance, and then Facebook is going to tell you that basis A/B testing that you have done, uh, here are the results for this. So what happens is your initial budget, like whatever initial budget which you may have, but if you're not sure on to which creative might fare the best, you can always follow the A/B testing rule, and then probably deploy about the initial 5 to 10% budgets towards testing, and then see the initial test results to then decide as to which creative should you be putting the rest 90% or the massive remaining amount of your budget towards, right? So this is another another feature which is available on Facebook ads, wherein you can do this A/B testing and then put your money behind creatives that have already proven their efficacy by getting better audience traction, right? Okay, so now that we have seen this, I think this is the last slide before which we get into the actual tool walkthrough. So I also wanted to give you a sense of the targeting options that you have on Facebook. We're going to discuss about Facebook at Creative Data. So so Facebook allows you to target custom audience. There are behavior-based audience, there are interest-based audiences, and then there is something that I call it as derived audiences. But then so I'm going to double click on each of these ones as in when we get into the deeper nuances within the. But just to give you a very simple definition for each of these. So what is custom audience, right? Custom audience is basically your first party data, right? So this is the data that you own. It could be, let's say, your own customer details. It could be the details of people who have visited your website. It could be the details of people who have liked your page on Facebook. It could be details of people who have engaged with your Instagram profile. And then you can choose to play around with the duration, which can go all the way up to last 365 days. And so what custom audience helps you do is you can create audiences based on some of the formulas or rules that you set. But you can definitely leverage, like, let's say, people who have already engaged with the brand, right? So it could be in the form of customers, it could be in the form of people who are engaging on the website, or people who are engaging on social media. And then of course, like within social media as well, you could also look at probably some of the video ads that you would have run. You can also create custom audience pool of people who have seen at least a certain percentage of your video, like probably engaged with your video now, right? So that's what custom audience helps you. So it just like helps you create an audience segment basis people's prior engagement or basis people's prior response to the brand, right? So that is custom audience. Now, what is derived audience? So derived audience is basically, so now that you have created a custom audience pool, Facebook also has a feature which helps you sort of try and find more and more number of people who are on the Facebook ecosystem who exhibit similar behavior as that of your custom audiences, right? So which in Facebook's parlance is lookalike audiences, right? So once you have created a custom audience base, you can also create lookalike audiences on this particular custom base, right? So let's say you want to create a lookalike audience of people who have purchased something from you in the last 1 year. So you create that base, and then you can create, like, let's say, people who exhibit similar behavior on Facebook. So you can always create that derived audience from the custom audience, from the initial custom audience. And then Facebook also lets you choose, okay, so up to what level of accuracy do you want to sort of like go after your similar audiences or the lookalike audiences. So that is something which you can figure out. So if you go for, let's say, 3% lookalike or 5% lookalike, what it means is it is going to find 5% of people or 5% of active users on Facebook within the location that you have selected, um, who exhibit the closest behavior to your audience. Now, if you increase that 5% to, let's say, 10%, so then the base of users that is going to double, right? But but because of this higher base or because of this increased reach, you will also have to give up some bit of your accuracy, right? Because now Facebook is trying to find more and more number of people who are similar to your audience. So smaller the base of the lookalike, the greater is the accuracy. But the moment you are going after, like, let's say, the larger percentage, like the larger basis of lookalike audiences, of course you can go for higher reach, but then that is going to come at the cost of accuracy, right? So that was about derived audience. Now there are two other interest bases. So one is like behavior based audience, and then the other one is interest based audience. So what is behavior based audience? So this is something which gets formed because Facebook knows something about audiences, which goes beyond just like liking a page or beyond just let's say watching a video, right? So just to give you an example, behavior based. So what are some of the examples of behavior based, right? So people who are iPhone users or people who use Samsung one particular model. So all of these things are based on some of the signals that Facebook is trying to read, and then these go beyond just like liking a piece of content on the Facebook platform, right? So that's why we call it a behavioral audience. Or it could be, let's say, people who are frequent international travelers. So that is something which is still like so it's not like I am saying that I like this, but then it is about, I have done something and Facebook has captured that signal and then clubbed me into behavior based, and that's why I'm a behavior audience rather than interest audience, right? And what happens in interest basis, like let's say if I end up liking a few post about Virat Kohli, or if I end up liking a post about MS Dhoni, so then Facebook could like, you know, uh, take me and then categorize me as, as likely to be someone who is interested in Virat Kohli or MS Dhoni, or like let's say those kind of interests. So interest base is majorly around your content consumption patterns, and then basis that you get categorized. Interest base are usually like let's say huge in numbers, because the criteria for Facebook to categorize something into interest base is like very simple. Versus like let's say behavior based, wherein you're still walking the talk. You're not just talking, but you're walking the talk. That's why you would see the behavior based audience sizes relatively could be lesser as compared to interest based, but like let's say the intent wise, or probably the intent wise will still be higher, because you have already walked the talk. You're not just talking. So probably some brands also use behavior based audiences to their advantage by sort of like doing some smart stuff. Right. Okay, so now it's time that we do. It's time that we go back to Facebook Audience Manager and see this. Okay, I'm assuming that you can see the screen now. We're currently on Ads
Yes, we can.
Manager screen. Okay, all right. So I think you all will also get to sort of like create your own Ads Manager access, and once you have the Ads Manager access, um, you know you will directly land onto this particular page. I mean, after you are done with the uh, with the access level formalities. These are like quite straightforward, pretty straightforward. You need to have a business manager first, and then that business manager gets connected onto an ads manager. And I think AntWak team will to sort of like send out that entire process checklist. So that's just a to-do list that you need to follow. And then once you have that ads manager set up properly, this is the first screen which you come to when you log into your ads manager, right? And over here you can see, like let's say all of the ad accounts which are connected onto your ads manager. So currently I'm on AntWak cohort ads, and since I also work on a lot of other brands ads manager. So like this is the place wherein I can see, like let's say all of the ads manager, and then I can seamlessly flow from one ads manager to the other one from here, right? So for this particular class, we're going to like focus on AntWak's ads manager account, AntWak PM cohort ad account. So this is what I've selected. So you see here, like let's say your campaigns, ad sets, and ads, right? So the way Facebook categorizes, all of your ads is you need to create a campaign first, and inside campaign you will have ad sets, and within each of these ad sets you can run like ads, right? So in terms of hierarchy, you will have campaigns followed by ad sets followed by ads, right? And the best way to segregate as to what do you categorize as campaigns, what do you categorize as ad sets and ads is, if you have different creatives, of course, like you will have to go for setting up different ads. But ad sets is, technically speaking, when you create those audience segments or audience cohorts, right? So each of these ad sets, would be synonymous or synalogous to your audience cohorts that you create. So if you have created three different audience segments and you want to test out these three different audience segments, these audience segments need to be there in three different ad sets within the same campaign. Or if or if you have, let's say, without complicating things. So currently we're just sticking to one campaign. Let's say you want to promote shoes, right? But those shoes you want to promote to three different kind of audiences. So one could be like, let's say, your geography based, wherein you want to focus Delhi NCR in one ad set. You want to focus on Mumbai on the other one, and then you want to focus on some of the other geographies in the other one. So this is one way of categorizing. The second way of categorizing could be you want to go after people who are looking for formal shoes, versus you want to target people who are going after casual shoes and all. So you could set up your ad sets on that basis, depending on interest based audiences, and then you can have like this separate creatives running as like ads within each of these, right? So now let us quickly look at a ad creation, or like let's say simple ad creation process. What are the steps that you need to follow to create an ad, right? So let me just go back and start from the beginning. So here you see this create button. We click on this create. So the moment you click on create, right, just like us, Facebook also starts with campaign objective. What is the objective, right? And for each of these objectives, right? So you know, so so the three basic, so the three basic stages of the consumer funnel is awareness, consideration, and conversion. So for each of those stages of the funnel, we will have like this separate separate. Let's say if you're looking at awareness, you will get objectives like brand awareness or reach. If you look at consideration as another step of the funnel, you will see traffic, engagement, app installs, it could be video views, it could be lead generation, or it could be messages as well. And Facebook allows you to sort of like get messages on Messenger, or you can also get messages on WhatsApp, right? And then within conversion, you will have your conversions, which are like say your website conversion. It could be like let's say any of the sales of the products that are there as a part of your product catalog. You could also kind of like club that piece in as catalog sales, or you could look at store traffic as well, right? So let's say you have a newly opened store and you don't really know how much conversions are going to drive from your store. So currently, you just want to drive traffic to your store. So you could also select that as an objective and then run ads, right? And then you can monitor, what kind of traffic have you managed to drive to the store. But if you look at Facebook's current level of detailing, it will help you just understand as to what percentage of the people who are in a certain vicinity around your store you have managed to reach out to, right? So like it just like helps you with the reach coverage around your store. But like going beyond that into like let's say some of those final level detailing or intricate detailing, that is something which is still not available. Right? So that's why many times we used to go for conversions, and within conversions to tag something called as offline conversions, and then sort of like also used to see those things, right? So let us begin with you know let us begin with an objective which you guys are going to use it, or like probably which is the most relevant for someone who has a e-commerce website and they want to track valuable actions on the website, right? Which would be like let's say making a purchase, or like let's say adding to cart, or any other things. So the moment you click on the objective, which is let's say the conversions, you can also name your campaign, and something which can happen here. So you can name the campaign. So and similarly, if you want to create an ad set, so all of these things you can do within the quick setup theme, wherein you can name your ad set as well, and then you could also name your ad, and then it takes you all the way to other things, right? So let's say just doing it just to show you. Okay. So currently what I've done is I chose website conversions as the objective, and then I named my campaign as XYZ. Inside that campaign XYZ, I have created one ad set which is PQR, and then inside that ad set I have got one ad which is CH, right? So the moment I click on continue, you see here, so it plugs in the name that I had entered. So here, so I'm at a campaign level view, so I can see XYZ, and inside XYZ the ad sets you can see PQR which I had given, and inside PQR you can see BHD, which is the name of the ad, right? So now let us spend some time deep dive into what are the things which you see inside campaign. So within campaigns, the first thing that Facebook is going to ask you is like, do you happen to fall under any of the special ad categories? Because like those ad categories are seen with much more stringent norms by Facebook, because that is something which is also devised by the government of India. So if you are, sorry, yeah, so if your company falls into anything, or if your messaging falls into anything which has got to do with social issues, elections, or politics, then you will have to say it out upfront, saying, okay, so I'm going to talk about an issue which is connected to the elections, or which is connected to some political party, or it has got like some bit of like political information. So you will have to make that declaration upfront, so that Facebook can do the necessary checks on that, and then sort of like tell you whether the ad is approved or not, right? And some of the other things that also happens is Facebook has something called as Facebook ad library. So that is one place where you can go to check out like what are the current ads which are running, uh, you know, in one particular geography. So like let's say if you want to see, okay, what are the ads that are currently active in India? So you can go to Facebook ads library. You can select India as the geography, and then you can also look at like say and then you can also give the name of the brand for which you want to see the ad. So on that Facebook ads library, if you have already chosen social issues, elections, or politics as one of the things that you're declaring, and if Facebook approves that, yeah, this is actually the case, that you fall into social issues or elections or politics, Then on Facebook Ads Library, you can also see how much are you spending. Right? So that is something that Facebook has done just to like increase its transparency framework. So you can also see how much is that brand spending on something, let's say the special ad category. So that helps you just like understand the intensity with which some brand is kind of like pushing that particular agenda. So if your category does not belong to any of these, then probably you will not be able to see how much are the spends on Facebook. But for these special ad categories, you see all the details up to the level of spend, right? So it will tell you spends, estimated impressions. Okay. And then now when you look at campaign details, here is what you need to give in terms of, so whether you want buying type. So there are two kinds of buying type. So one is auction. So for the conversions as an objective, it is just like show you auction as the one buying type. It is not going to show you reach and frequency. So when you select, brand awareness or reach as an objective, which we saw inside awareness bucket. So if you select either of those, you can actually come to this particular place wherein it will ask you for your buying type, and then you can also give, instead of auction, you can also see reach and frequency. So what is the difference between RF, which is reach and frequency, and auction? Auction is like everything happens real time, and then you will have to follow that like real time competitive bidding. Other brands also would be a part of that auction, and whosoever wins the auction, that brand's ads get served on the place on the relevant. Right? But when you have reach and frequency, those are like a fixed kind of a deal, wherein you tell Facebook that okay, I want to go for this much amount of reach, I want to go for this frequency, and this is the target audience pool. So all of that is fixed, and then you will have that as a fixed deal, wherein no matter what, you will get that much amount of reach, and you will also deliver on that frequency. So that is something which is more synonymous to kind of TV kind of a buying which you see, and that is followed by a lot of big FMCG brands who want to also have their reach targets fulfilled, who want to go after the frequency targets fulfilled, because they will always have to maintain that kind of a top of mind awareness. They want to have that kind of a visibility. Probably it makes sense for those kind of brands, but most of the digital brands who have, like, let's say, very, very niche targeting or like rightly sized targeting, they may not be going after the initial masses initially. So so more often than not, you will be in the auction, because this is something wherein you're a part of the competitive bidding. It's not like you definitely want to have 80% coverage, 60% coverage, but this is something which offers you more flexibility to see how are you faring, and then accordingly kind of like move the budget, monitor the budgets, increase the budget, and then go down. Right. So for this, we have selected auction because this is conversions objective, right? And the objective, as we had already chosen, is conversions. And here you can also see your campaign spending. So if I click here, so in that case, it will also ask me to set up a limit, and then like it will not go beyond this spending. So many times when you're setting up the ad, and if you're not sure as to how much you want to spend on this campaign, you could set up a total budget which is like, let's say, higher, but then you want to take things a little slow. You want to see as to how exactly is the campaign doing, and then accordingly take a call on that. You can always set this campaign limit. Right. So this is the like additional checks and balances in place just to ensure that your campaigns are well spent, right? And then over here, so this is what I was talking about, right? So A/B test, so we can test our campaigns, we can test our ad sets or ads against each other to understand, which is the one which is giving us the best results. So let's see if I click here. So okay, so currently I've clicked like A/B test, so that's where it is saying that like this campaign, whatever I'm running, this is version A. So I'll also have to create a separate version B, right? And then this is campaign budget optimization. So let's say if I am having 3 different ad sets within a campaign, but I don't want to spend equally on all of these 3 different ad sets, or if I don't want to set up budgets at an ad set level, so then I just tell Facebook that okay, Facebook, I know that I am reaching out to these 3 different ad sets, but I want you to optimize my budget at an overall campaign level. So which means that my objective gets decided at a campaign level. I want to drive conversion, right? Now let's say my 3 different ad sets could be footwear, second one is apparel, the third one is accessories, right? I don't know which is going to drive the maximum conversion for me. So if I put my campaign budget optimization at a campaign level, so then Facebook is going to like look at the numbers, how exactly are the numbers, what are audiences responding the best to, and then accordingly it is going to accordingly over index or accordingly over allocate spends to the ad set which is delivering the best result, right? So it may so happen that apparel is doing well, so in that case eventually apparel will end up getting 50-60% of the total budget for the campaign versus the other two. right? So like that kind of a flexibility you can give to the system so that the system can allocate budget depending on like what kind of performance you see, right? So currently I'm not setting this on, so this is currently an off, but just I wanted to give you the tips on that, right? So now, yeah, so now that we had given the details of the campaign level, so after that we are coming on to the ad set. So this is the ad set. So we had already given the name of the ad set. You are now it will ask you for conversion. So when you look at the conversions, within conversions you can also give like it's a website conversions. You could also choose to give app conversions. You could choose to give messenger or WhatsApp conversions, right? So let's say if you want to drive, you know, messages from messenger. So let's say if you want to drive uh, people to a WhatsApp chat, you can also select on these options and then accordingly sort of like see. But currently, since we are talking about website, and then we want to drive conversions on the website, which is like let's say some valuable actions on the website. So we choose website as the conversion implementation here, and then pixel. So we are going to cover pixel in a bit of time. But what it says is since I'm going to track conversions, Facebook is going to definitely look for a pixel, whether the pixel is already kind of added on the website or not, right? And then over here, of course, like Facebook is calling out the pixel ID, which means that the pixel is already there on the website. And now I can choose the event, right? So let's say I choose purchase as an event. Okay, so it says this is not prioritized. So because this is something which will come in after Apple's iOS 14.5 updates and all. So yeah, so this is basically Apple sent out a update which said that if people opt out of tracking, because like earlier what used to happen is by default apps can track all of your data and then can like send it back for better advertising purpose. But post Apple's iOS 14.5 update, people will need to opt in, right? So only when you opt in that okay, I am allowing the app to track my activity and then use that for advertising, only then will those details be tracked by the app. Otherwise, by default it is opt out versus like let's say by default opt in for the earlier piece. So that's what it is saying that this event hasn't been prioritized for iOS 14.5. So which means that if you want to track this, then only people who have opted in for being tracked, they will be captured. And then that is something which is a bit of a limitation, but then that is something which is happening post iOS 14.5, right? So points to remember: we have chosen purchase as a conversion event. This is the pixel which is already set up on the website. Now we move on, right? And then we also spoke about dynamic creatives, right? Wherein we said that okay, so we can give like let's say multiple creatives. It could be like let's say a group of 4 to 5 creatives. This is fairly straightforward. Like when you get access to the tool, just play around it. It allows you to like push like up to 5 different creatives, multiple headlines, multiple descriptions. So play around it. In case you have any questions, probably you can put it up on the and then we can connect on that. I'm not getting into this in the interest of time. And this one again, offer, like let's say if you have some offer communication which you want to drive, this is also another feature which Facebook has, wherein if you select this, then you will have to feed in the details of the offer, and then that is something people can save, and then probably utilize that later on. So this is something which a lot of retail brands can use to drive, traffic to the retail store, where people show this and then kind of like they can redeem that offer. So this is again like up to you to play around and then figure out. I'm not getting into this. And this is where you can set a daily budget or a lifetime budget, right? So if you and what the difference is, like let's say if you want to run the campaign for about 4 to 5 different days, lifetime budget is the total budget the system gets to spend over the entire course of the campaign, right? Versus the daily budget is like this is the amount which the system has to spend, on a daily basis. So when we say that this is the amount that the system wants to spend, so this takes out a bit of flexibility from the system. Let's say you're running on a weekday versus weekend. Some days they might have great traction, right? So a lot of people are coming on the site. Your creators are doing really well. So it limits the system's ability to kind of like infuse some more spends on that particular day because that particular day is doing well because they are already on a daily budget. So when you are putting up a daily budget, you're forcing the system to spend at least 80% of that budget. And on the higher side also, the most that you can go is like let's say up to 120%. But then that fluctuation is going to remain within that range. Versus when you set it up on a lifetime budget, you give the entire control to the system. So now the system is going to assess that, okay, so like today, this is what the traffic seems, this is how the conversions are trending. So then accordingly, the system is going to sort of like use its own intelligence to kind of like phase your campaign from your day one all the way till the day. Right? So that's what is the difference between daily budget and lifetime budget. And then yeah, of course, like if you are on a budget, and then you can also schedule that like what will be your start date, what will be your end date, which is basically your campaign duration. And over here, when you go to show more options, this is like, let's say it is saying that you run ads all the time, and this is something which is not allowing you to edit because you are currently on daily budget. So the moment you put it on lifetime budget, because then you're saying that okay, I'm going to run this campaign for about a week's time or for about 2 weeks time. Sorry, state is already gone. If I put this, so now you can see, so this is currently set up for about a month long duration. And now when you go on to the ad scheduling and click on this run ads on the schedule, it allows you to sort of like select, like let's say on Monday you want to run ads from 6 p.m. onwards, and similarly, right? So this offers you the flexibility. So wherein you're telling the system that okay, so I don't want to run ads on Mondays during this time, so you just like maximize all of your ad serving during this particular period. But remember, this is something which is available only with your lifetime budget. And then of course, like there are some other basic details which you can definitely scrub through. Like let's say which time zone to use. It's always better to use previous time zone because then you know that that person sees the ad at that time. So it's always better that you put it up on previous time zone. And now coming on to the audiences, just like how we discussed, right? So the 4 different types of audiences. So let us go to a custom audience, because this is what it says. Also, so it says that you do not have any custom audiences created on this one. So we need to create a new custom audience. So over here you can go and then click on new custom audience. Then it will ask you what is the source. And since this is the website, our source will be the website. We click on new. And this is what it says, right? So we already have a pixel installed. This is the pixel. So so all of the audiences that we create on this custom audience will be based on this pixel, right? And now what it says is, okay, so this is the pixel source and this is the events, this is all website visitors. And I'm going to look at the 30 days to arrive at, like, let's say, creating this particular custom audience pool. So this current setup will help me create a custom audience pool of everyone who visited my website in the last 30 days, right? Now, if I want to change this, right? And then let's say I want to go to target people who visited specific websites. So over here, you can also see the different options that you have. So over here, so if you want to target people based on specific web pages, you can also, put these kind of filters. URL contain, let's say many a times when you are going for purchases, your URL usually contains, thank you, or like say welcome, or like say if you're putting up a subscription, it will tell you welcome, like that is something part of the URL itself. And also, so if you want to sort of like go beyond this, you could also look at, okay, so people who have visited this page as well as some other page, you can keep on creating those kind of audiences. It also allows you option for, like, let's say, further refined by frequency. So if you go for frequency, over here, what you could do is, you need to look at people who have visited one particular page, but at least more than this much amount of time, right? So let's say, someone who has visited a page for 2 times, 3 times, or even more. So then you know that, like, this is something which is, like, let's say, high intent audience, because that person has been considering your product and he is more likely to convert. So you could also use or choose frequency option here to find, like, right? So I'm not creating this audience. I just, like, wanted to show you how do you create a custom audience pool, and this is how you go about creating custom audience, right? And similarly, once you have created a custom audience, you should be able to see over here in terms of your custom audiences, which will come in as existing audiences. And then you could also create a lookalike audience. So the moment you click on lookalike audience for an already existing custom audience, it will, you will be able to select that custom audience and then go for, your 1% lookalike, 2% lookalike, and you can select that lookalike in a slider from 1% all the way up to 10%. So that is fairly straightforward. So now that we have seen these two, and then after that, of course, like we can choose your locations. You can go here, you can edit, and then you can accordingly choose locations here. So if you want to select some city, so you want to select Mumbai. So you can just select Mumbai, and then accordingly you can also plug in like what radius do you want to go around. So it allows you to select these kind of stuff, right? And what it also allows you to see here. So,
Susovan, just a quick time check. It's 5 p.m.
yeah, sure. No worries,
Okay.
no worries.
Yeah.
We are on track. Okay, so yeah, so over here in the bottom, you can also see the potential reach. So the moment you plug in Mumbai and the Mumbai plus 25 miles, you see the potential reach is about 19 million. The moment you start reducing this, right? Obviously, I mean, if you reduce the radius to 10 miles, okay, so then your potential reach is also going to reduce. So from 19 million, it became 15 million, right? So similarly, as and when you keep adding more locations there, you can also see the audience size, which will pop in here, right? And then similarly, all of the other demographic detailing, like your age targeting, you can select a range, you can select your genders here. This is detailed targeting expansion. So what it allows you to do is, sorry, what it allows you to do is like, let's say you have created an audience segment, and Facebook machine learning, it realizes that you know there could be some other audience cohorts which exhibit similar behavior to what you have currently selected, right? But if you're not targeting lookalikes, and then you have just gone ahead with, like, let's say your interest audiences, so in that case, Facebook also allows you to keep your detailed targeting expansion on. So the moment you keep your detailed targeting expansion on, because you will not be able to create lookalikes for your interest segment audiences. So the moment you create your detailed targeting expansion on, it will help you reach people beyond your targeting criteria. When Facebook clearly sees that, okay, those people are also likely to take similar actions, and then that is something which is going to give you better cost performance or improve performance. So you can keep your detailed targeting. So if I switch off the detailed targeting, right? Because, like, let's say I'm fairly confident on this particular audience, I don't want to go for data targeting. This is what it is. Now, this is where we are going to talk about the two other segments. One is interest, and then the other one is behavior. So let's say, so over here you could type in something. Let's say you want to target people who are fashion interested. So yeah, so the moment you type in fashion, it is going to show you all of the different options that are available within fashion. So you could pick and choose from here, or alternatively, what you could also look at browsing. So within this, when you go to demographics, you see this whole host of options which are available. Within education, you could see fields of study, schools, undergrad years. Within education level, it's a further bifurcation of this. So you could select all of these ones, and then accordingly, Facebook is going to sort of like tell you what sizing are you getting for each of them. So similarly, so within demographics, you have education, financial, life events. If you go inside life events, you see people having anniversary soon, or like probably they may have had an anniversary in past. People are away from family, away from hometown. People have people having birthdays, like people whose birthday month is now, or people whose upcoming birthdays are here, and you could look at sort of like targeting them. Or let's say friends of men with a birthday in 0 to 7. Probably you can select this particular audience. So let's say if I select this, right, it says that right now I'm targeting people who are friends of men who might have birthdays in the 0 to 7 days category. So there are about 7.5 million people in Mumbai location who fall in this criteria, right? Friends of men with a birthday in 0 to 7. So let's imagine you are a gifting website, or you're a gifting e-commerce website, and then you have like great gifting ideas for men, right? So you can obviously create this as an audience segment, and then you can target this segment. You know that they have someone's birthday within the gang, or within the group, and then you could also give them options that, like, probably you could look at going after these kind of gifts for the birthday boy, right? Or things like that. So so basically you need to just like pull through, or like look at like the various ways by which you could target audiences, and this is something which I like leave it for you guys to explore. So there are a lot of different options within this. If it's a relationship, within relationship, you could choose relationship status. look at people who are engaged. So you can target engaged people and then like look at marriage oriented or marriage related services for them, like you say wedding photo shoot, wedding photography, all of those things. Like sort of like have those kind of things. Or let's look at married like people who are in the married status and then accordingly sort of like put out relevant communication if your product fits the bill there, right? Yeah, so I'm not getting into each of these because like all of these are like quite extensive lists. Like it's something to play around. And then similarly within interest, you see a lot of these different options. Let's say if I go to shopping and fashion, because we're talking about shopping or e-commerce as a category. Let's say if you go to interests, then if you go to shopping and fashion, within shopping it tells you, like beauty is there as a category. So like people who are interested in beauty salons or people who are interested in cosmetic preferences. So you know that the categories, you can definitely, you can always choose to then. Or shopping, within shopping, you could look at, people who usually shop from discount stores, or like people who have browsed through a lot of content around luxury goods, luxury brands. You could target those kind of psychographics by these kind of options which are available in the interest category, right? And then last but not the least, the behavior piece. So this is what I was talking about. See, anniversary is something which that people have this anniversary. This is behavior. This is not coming to some content consumption pattern, but this is something which is there. They have that anniversary. Right? So this is more of a behavior. Similarly, consumer classification. You could look at India. So if you look at India as a market, you could look at people who prefer mid and high value foods in India versus people who prefer high value foods. So depending on like whichever you choose. So like let's say if you look at people who prefer high value goods, you see about 67 million audience size here. Or if you look at medium and high value goods, you see about 105 million audience size. Right? So depending on what kind of a product are you selling, probably you can choose which one do you want to go after, especially from a consumer classification perspective. Similarly, you can target people based on their mobile device usage. You can target people based on the mobile device brand that they are using. Within that as well, you could go for like specific models, right? Like let's say Apple, you could target like some of the latest launches, then accordingly target those ones. In India, brands use that as an affluence indicator, but then I don't think that is an affluence indicator anymore because these days, there are so many easy financing options which are available out there, and these days not just high net worth individuals own Apple. It is fairly democratized. A lot of people have Apple phones, right? But like, just like getting a thought started on those directions, and then similarly look at like what are the other things people interested in upcoming events. You could look at concerts, you could look at like fests and all of those things. You could target them. Purchase behavior wise, you could target people who are engaged. So people who have clicked on buy now or a shop now product on Facebook, you could target them as well. And similarly, I was mentioning about just a minute. Sorry, why is not that friendly as well? Times. Yeah, so over here, okay, let's say I want to target people basis their travel related behavior. Right? So you see here, this is a frequent traveler, this is a frequent international traveler. So all of these are popping in as behavior, right? So like within behavior, and then over here you can also see, that the size is about 1.4 billion in terms of behavior. It's travel frequent travelers. When you look at international travelers, it's like 709 million. And accordingly, you can sort of like use these to sort of like create those audience segments and then have those people, right? So yeah, so the more you explore the tool and then also understand that these are also available as some of the targeting criteria, the better you get at and like also clubbing those segments and creating your audience, right? And then of course like within placements as well, you can choose like which placement do you want to go after. So Facebook is not just Facebook. Facebook is a combination of Facebook. It has got Instagram, it has got Messenger, and other than that, it has got something called as audience. What is audience network? Is just like how on Google you have Google Display Network, which is a list of websites which are signed up to AdSense for showing advertising on their website. Facebook also has got something called as Facebook Audience Network, which are a list of websites which are connected to the Facebook's network. And the moment you choose Audience Network, your ads will also show up not just within Facebook ecosystem, which is Facebook, Instagram, or Messenger, but then it can also show up on any other partner websites who are part of the Facebook audience, right? So let's say if I choose, let's say if I ignore audience network or Messenger, right? And then like let's say I'm just like picking Facebook and Instagram. So within Facebook and Instagram, I will see all of the different placement options. So I can choose to go with just three, right? Let's say I don't want to show up anywhere else, so I can just like keep on, unselecting everything else, and then accordingly, your ad is going to show up only for the selected placement that I have. So this is something which is manual. So Facebook recommends that you should always put it on automatic placements because then you are giving much more control to the system to kind of then show up ads to people who are more likely to convert. And Facebook says that it will be able to deliver better results the moment you put it on automatic placement. But then you can always test and learn what is delivering better results for you, and then accordingly proceed on it, right? So this is what is the fundamental difference between automatic placements and manual placements. And then of course over here you could tell the system that what is the conversion action that you want to optimize for. So here you could look at so you could optimize for conversions, you could optimize for landing pages, let's say, right? And then you could also optimize for other options, which could be like, let's say, link clicks. So this is basically people are more likely to click on the link, but not necessarily land on the page of landing views. It could be, you want to optimize for daily unique reach. If that is something which matters to you the most, and then that would be the primary API for you. Then you could also, pick daily unique reach or impression. Right. So this is where you just select what would be the optimization for the ad delivery, and then of course, this is basically some other additional cost controls in case you want to keep your cost under a certain level. Always, right? Because like you're currently optimizing for conversion. Let's say if you put this as a cost control, so then Facebook is going to aim to get you your conversions at under 150 bucks, right? So if you have any kind of a target cost per acquisition that your customer acquisition cost should not go beyond this, then probably you can also select this and then tell Facebook that I don't want to pay anything more than 150. So 150 is just an example. So this, depending on the business and the category that you operate in, your numbers could vary as well. But then this is what you can tell Facebook, and then accordingly Facebook is going to tell you that depending on the targeting that you have chosen, depending on the placement that you have chosen, and the cost control mechanism, this is what Facebook feels that it is to deliver in terms of the reach, right? Maybe because the cost control, like I say, too tight or too small or too large, and then accordingly, the moment you keep on making these changes here, probably you should see whether make this move, right? So you realize when this was at 150, it said reach will be less than 10, but now the moment I kept it 500, so that instead of reach, it is going to get us like conversions, like let's say this reach, but reach is going to be this, right? So now I have given the system more flexibility, and the system can still cut a bit loose and then accordingly go reach out to people and then accordingly drive those. That's why you see these numbers moving the moment you keep changing those. This is something which you can still edit in terms of your attribution setting. You can choose to tell Facebook that okay, I want to consider people who are taking an action one day after a click, right? Or you can choose like whether you want to set the windows one day or you want to set the windows 7. It is usually recommended that you at least set a 7-day window, so that like let's say even if you miss out on that one day conversion, you should be able to track whatever is happening. Then like probably you've got a larger window for you to kind of also showcase your ad impact or ad effectiveness. And then
so I had just one question.
Yeah, Anish.
Yeah. So in terms of cost control, so ideally is it better to add a cost control, or is it it's a better practice to leave it to lower cost at the start?
Yeah. So the thing is, so the thing is, if you tighten up your cost, right? So like let's say you're starting with like very very low cost. Let's say in the past you have run campaigns and then you have seen that your customer acquisition cost is usually in the range of 200 to 50 bucks. But if you're putting the pressure on Facebook and then you're telling Facebook that okay, give me a conversion at 100 bucks, right? So in that case, Facebook is going to be way more conservative, right? In that case, probably your campaign may not scale enough, right?
Yeah, because
So
I think many times after adding a cost control, the reach is sometimes reduced a lot.
Yeah, that's what. No, because the campaign is not scaling because of that reason. Because the moment you keep a very tight cost control, So if the system does not have enough data about the conversions that you're having on the website, it is not going to spend enough. Versus, like, let's say you're a company who has been advertising on Facebook for the past couple of years, right? And Facebook knows that you generate conversions at, like, let's say 120, 130, and then you're going up to $100 as a cost control. So then that is not a huge difference from the already existing numbers that the system has. So in those cases, probably you may not have those kind of scaling issues. But if the Facebook knows that you're currently getting a conversions at 500 rupees, let's say, and then you want the system to get your conversions at 100 rupees, in that case, definitely you definitely have scaling issues. So the best practice for you is to reduce the cost control in phases. Let's say if you're currently seeing that your customer acquisition cost is 150 or 200, reduce it in phases by, like, let's say 5% or 10%, and then look at, like, how has it impacted the campaign performance in terms of scale. Has your reach gone down? Has the number of conversions gone down? Because what happens is the system also takes a bit of time to learn and then accordingly adapt itself. So, the more phases you add onto the system, and then the lesser the, delta between the previous cost versus this
So,
cost.
does Facebook, consider the past campaigns run as well, in terms of for running for if we add a cost cap for a campaign,
Correct.
so if for a new campaign, but then I have previously ran ads on this account maybe for a period of 6 months. So does
Yeah.
Facebook take into account the previous data as well for a new campaign?
Yes, it will take the previous data as well, because, like, all of that is still available, right? And because you could also see that a lot of brands also run prospecting campaigns, wherein they give the system the flexibility to go after audiences without the brands defining the audiences themselves. Because then Facebook has this intelligence and it knows that what kind of audiences are converting, what kind of audiences are not converting, and then accordingly it is going to use that learning to kind of, like, better performance over time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So yeah. So now that we have seen, let's say most of the steps which are there in the journey, any more questions, guys, that you might have till this stage?
I had one question
Yanni?
regarding the placements.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of placements there. So is there like a suggestion where you could say this particular placement doesn't perform well, or you can start with all the placements or something like that?
Yeah. So see, the thing is, that's sort of the beauty in digital marketing, right? So if you have 4 different digital marketers inside a room, or, like, probably make them sit separately in separate rooms and then ask them that which placement has worked the best for you. In all likelihood, you might see different responses coming from each of them, right? Because the category is different, the stage, you know, the stage in which the brand currently is there for, like, let's say, each of the people can vary drastically, and that's why, just to give you another example, I have seen carousels being the best, but the other gentleman, he said, Anish said that, he has seen videos well enough. So that's why the best part is, like, if you do not have data telling you, like, what placements are doing the best for you, it's always better that you select automatic placements and then look at the numbers, like, after a couple of weeks time, because by then you will have, let's say, much more data coming, and then accordingly you can call that whether automatic placements is something which is delivering better results, or you feel that you're better off just by running your ads on news feed and stories, right? But a few things that I have observed, right, is, when you select stories as a placement, so what happens is your CPM rates, because the cost for you to serve ads on stories is higher, precisely because of 2 reasons. A, of course, story is a full screen experience versus feed being, like, let's say, non-full screen experience. So, there's a premium for the experience that people get on stories. And then the second thing is, it is not usual behavior for people to go through stories, right? So in terms of the total number of people who are coming and then seeing your ad, you will always be limited by, the kind of reach and exposure and impression that you'll get on stories ads versus feed ads. And probably that also adds to, like, it's the higher cost that we see. So at a CPM level, at least I have seen, stories ads being expensive. But then, as I said, there is no one size fits all approach with course on digital marketing. You will have to sort of, like, try, these things and then see what is working for your brand, depending on the audiences that you're going after, depending on the creative strategy that you have, depending on the creative format that you can also do. right? But then within your account, if you have already seen past performance, that's great, right? Because then you know that you have been running these placements for a good 3 months, 6 months, about a year's time. So if you have, something which data says you, so then you can go with that data.
So these placements, they differ in cost, right? Like feed, as you said, stories might have a higher CPM than feed. So they all differ.
Yeah. So see, the difference is coming because of these reasons, right? Because these are all auction campaigns. So it will depend on, like, let's say, how many people are eligible to see your ad. So that is one, which is where the difference in stories come in. Because relatively lesser number of people, they go to the stories section to check out all of those things versus, like, let's say, someone just seen on the feed, right? So in terms of supply demand equation, when you see the total number of users coming on the stories ads, if the number of users is less, and on top of that, it being a full screen experience, brands, may be willing to sort of like invest a bit more and then sort of like have that kind of a visibility on the stories. So probably that is the reason why you could see at a CPM level the cost being high, but then at a acquisition level or at a conversion level you could see stories doing cheaper as well. So all of that would depend on what kind of an experience are you giving, and then accordingly are you able to drive better conversion rates coming in from stories.
I had one more thing regarding the ad formats. So we have carousel, creative, and all these different types of ads. So there also the cost would impact on the type of ad I select, or that should be same for all the.
See, I would not say that it is going to be the same, and then that is primarily happening because everything is auctioned. The moment you get in an auction, right? So every single impression that you get, right, you would have won that auction against some other competition brand, and that's why you are seen on the news feed, right? So that way, it is very, very difficult for us to predict or say that which creative is going to cost us less, which creative is going to cost us more. But a few things that you can definitely keep in mind. So just like Google, which rewards better performance in terms of, like, it's a better quality score. So if your creative is something which is getting a lot more traction, if your creative is getting a lot more clicks, if people are engaging with your creative, if they are liking your creative, if they are commenting over here, so then the algorithm takes that to be, like, let's say, a positive signal, right? And then Facebook is going to reward you because it knows that, like, you are adding to the content pool on the platform, right? So the more number of people see your ad, they also start believing that, yeah, okay, it's like Facebook shows me like really nice content. So if you're able to do that, probably you will be able to like bring down your average unit cost. Like, I mean, that is something which you would see in terms of average CPC or in terms of the average CPM that you try. Yeah. All right. Any other question?
Yeah, I have one. So
Yeah.
as we saw about A/B testing, so I think in order to understand the whole process of Facebook's, which one will work better, we have to do for A/B testing at the initial level. So for example, this is one A, this is a brand new ad, and this is A. So
Correct.
the second one will be, which will be launching maybe after a week, that would be B.
No, you will not launch it after a week. So A/B testing. So the concept of A/B testing is you run both of those simultaneously. So the thing is, the audience is going to be the same. So let's say if you want to test a creative, right? So the audience is going to be the same, and then you will have two versions of the creative, right? Versus if you want to test out audience, you don't know which audience is going to perform the best. In that case, you will have the single creative, but it is going to get pushed out to like multiple audiences, right? And then you will be able to figure out that, okay, so this creative works better with audience A versus audience. So A/B testing, the ground rules are, you know, it would want to keep as many factors same between both of these test variants so that your test results are not doctored or tailored that way. So it will try and give you the most apples to apples kind of a comparison. So in an A/B test, when you're setting up like two different versions of the creative and you want to test out which is doing well, so you set up a A/B test, and then accordingly, you can choose to split the budget. Typically, brands keep it at 50, but then it is up to you. So you can also choose whether you want to set 60% here, 30% here, and then see what kind of cost per acquisition are you getting or cost per clicks are you getting. But otherwise, more often than not, everything else will be the same. So both of those would be running simultaneously.
All right, okay, understood. Yeah.
All right. So let us move on. So now that we have seen this, when we go on to the next piece, So this is where we select the, so this was the name that we had given. Now in terms of page, so this is the page that we had selected. And then like we also get into, like, let's say, selecting the Instagram account, which should be obviously linked to the Facebook page. And this is what I was talking about in terms of branded content promotion. So if there was any kind of influencer tie-up, and then you would have, sort of like got that branded content partner approved from Instagram. The moment you click here as a branded content, you should be able to see, what is the partner Facebook page and partner Instagram account. And once these ones are through, and then you have got all of the necessary approvals, you should be able to select the creative and then run branded content promotion. But currently, since there is no influencer collaboration that we are talking about in this, so that's why I have unchecked this. And now in terms of ad setup, we are looking at creating an ad. So it could be single image or video, which you spoke about. It could be carousel, it could be collection. Let's say if I choose a carousel, so this is where you could select an image. So when you click on select an image, so you would have already added some of the images on your library. So let's say I select some random image. So the thing is, you will also have to create your own library. In case you have not added any image, you have to add images, and then once those images are uploaded on the library, from there, right? So, and then you get to put some headline, then accordingly some description, and then, by the way, mind you have got best practices for each of these, right? So your headline should be under 25 characters, description should be under 80 characters, all of these things. I think like that is something which you'll be able to, get it from a very simple Google search. I'm not getting into that. And this is where you have to keep your website URL. So where exactly are you driving people to? So that landing page URL needs to come in here. And similarly, so this will then become the first card, right? And then your second card, exact same process you need to follow. Let's say this is my second card. Sorry. So I get to select the image. My second card would be this. And as and when I keep, so over here you can also see a preview that this is how it will show you on Facebook. Currently, for some technical glitch, it is not showing this here, but then you should be able to see the preview. You get the trick, right? And you can also expand it to see how it shows. Right, and yeah, of course, like you can give your URLs and here, and then that's how we set up the ad, right? And then once the ad is set up, just like click on publish. I'm not publishing because I'm not setting up the ad. Now I just like wanted to take you through the entire process, which is there for this, right? So once you click on publish here, and once everything else is there, and there is no setup error. Right now there is a lot of setup errors because I have not plugged in the destination URL. So the website URL is something that you need to give in. You will need to have at least images for the carousel to run properly. So you give all of those things, and this is what I was talking about, right? So I spoke about automatically pushing the best performing cards first. So this is the option. So you get to check this or uncheck. So let's say you want to follow a correct sequence. You don't want Facebook to take that call, and you have already decided the sequence. In that case, you can uncheck it. But if you want to push the best performing card first, and you really want to take the advantage of automation to drive better performance, you will have to keep this to checked in, so that automatically show the best performing cards first, and that's how Facebook is going to do that automation on your behalf, right? And then all of that is worry about those. All right. So and then that's how you publish, and then get your ad to set up. But since we had chosen this for an A/B test, so the moment you click on publish, this just creates version A of the ad, and then it will ask you, okay, so if this is version A, what's the version B? And then you will have to sort of like again follow the same exercise all the way up to create the second version, which will be version B. And once all of that is set up, after that, when you click on publish, your ad will be ready to test, right? So this is what is the drill that you need to go through. Of course, I have just like taken you through a walkthrough of this one, but trust me, no matter of theory, no matter of like to say going through a lot of YouTube videos, going through all of these things, is going to help you as much as like let's say when you explore the tool yourself and then look at what are the tools which are there. Right? It is fairly user friendly. It is self-explanatory. A lot of these things you can figure out on your own. And I would suggest that you do these, and like whatever questions that you may have, you can always pop it up on the group, and then I should be happy to answer let's see what questions that you may have. Right. Okay. Now let me go back to presentation, because now that we are done with the demo, any questions, guys? So I shall take that silence as a no, that we don't have any questions. Okay.
I think. Yeah, guys, you can ask questions.
Yes, I have a question. So, is there anything specific that we should keep in mind while, uh, like while setting up the audience, like the behavior, interest, demographics, and all? And if should it be like normally they say we shouldn't keep it too broad or too narrow, but even after following this, my ads, like whatever even 1-2 ads that I've run, they haven't done that well. So, like, what are the specific things that we should keep in mind?
Sure. So, okay. So there is no such fixed answer to this as to how broad is too broad, how narrow is too narrow. So, like, this is something which you keep, bettering yourself, over time. But one of the ground rules is that you can always look at a budget. So, what kind of budget do you have? Let's say if you have $500 budget, right, and assume that your CPM is about 50. So, which means that you would need 50 rupees to reach 1,000, to get 1,000 impressions. And if you have a budget of 500, so then you can have 10,000 impressions on that, right? Now, if you select an audience which is, like, let's say, running into 100 million, just do the math. So you have selected an audience which is 100 million. At your budget, you can go up to 10,000 impressions. So 10,000 impressions on a base of 100 million, that is not even 0.001% of your total base. So what kind of audience coverage are you getting? It is for you to figure out whether the audience is doing well or not. You will need to give it some bit of time, and like having a healthy coverage on that audience always helps. So some of the ground rules that you can think of, right? So if you have this low budget, never ever go after, like, let's say, massive budget, like, like, let's say, massive audience size. You can always start with a smaller audience size and then probably create your hypothesis. One of the good ways of looking at this is, okay, so I have this hypothesis and I think that people who are interested in fashion, they will find my product appealing, right? But if you have only 500 rupees, there is no point in you going after fashion interested audience in the whole of India, right? So in that case, one of the ways by which you can narrow down the audiences, like, ask some hard questions to yourself. Ask, okay, fashion interested audience, do I think people in Mumbai are going to sort of, like, appeal more to my products, or like, do I think my sense of fashion is more Delhi specific, or like, let's say, the North Indian factor is there, or like probably I'm more of, like, let's say, your Kanchipuram silk and those kind of things, and then accordingly have those additional filters on, right? So the moment you start plugging in these additional filters, so you started off with the fashion audience, and then you realize that your audience coverage is very, very low for 500 rupee budget. Then you add additional filters. Okay, fashion plus Mumbai, or fashion plus NCR, or fashion plus some other location, right? I'm not saying after doing this your audience will be too narrow. In that case, think of, okay, fashion plus this location. Is there something else that I can also think of? Probably fashion plus, these people also need to be interested in something else. So the moment you get into audience selection, you also get an option to and audiences, right? So you want to narrow down your audiences. So fashion, Mumbai, and probably people who are also interested in, maybe something else. Let's say your fashion is cricket inspired fashion, or let's say your fashion is sustainable fashion, eco-friendly fashion. You could always club those kind of interests together, and then kind of like start thinking of narrowing down your audiences even further, so that you have a better shot at, at least figuring out whether this audience is working. Otherwise, you will never come to a conclusion, because at 0.00001% of your at that low coverage, that is not statistically significant for you to take any call on whether that audience is working or not, right? So the ground rule is always look at how much budget, what kind of estimated impressions will you get, what is the total audience pool, and with this impression pool, what percentage coverage of the audience will you be getting, and at least try to get somewhere around like 5%, if not anything, let us say more than that, because many times your audience pool will be so huge, and I have myself run campaigns wherein we have ended up into situations or scenarios wherein the audience coverage is less than 1%. So it did not make sense for us. So we always try to go for a healthy coverage. And just to give you a sense, a lot of the big brands, the big FMCG brands, when they go after like these brand campaigns and all, so they set a target of 60% coverage. At the time of launch, it has to be 60% reach week on week, right? And then if it is a sustenance campaign, it will be 40%. So the bigger brands are operating in that range. At least like, even if you could operate in like say 1/3 or 1/4 of that, so I mean I think you would still be good enough. So like let's say 5 to 10% also if you're able to hit, and then accordingly size your audience and then go after those. That would be so these are some of the things that you can definitely keep in mind. And then the second thing is also don't narrow down your audience too much that eventually you're going to pay up a much expensive price to reach out to that audience, right? Just because Facebook allows you to sharpen your audiences, if you have 10 filters, this and this and this and this. So with every such and, although your audience size is narrowing down, but at the same time, it is going to make things difficult for Facebook to reach out to that certain audience. So if you have your campaign duration, let's say your campaign duration is 7 days, and then you have got those many different ands, it may so happen that you may not be able to get that audience within your budget itself, and your CPMs can like shoot over the roof because of those kind of things. So that's why it is always about maintaining a decent balance within that. But yeah, of course, there are some guidelines that you can look to just ensure or understand as to what is the scale that we're talking about and what kind of budgets that we have, so that your budgets are not a peanut, or probably your audience is not too limited that you're ending up spending a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah. I saw Rupesh raising his hand. Yeah, Rupesh, go on.
Yes. Hello, sir. I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said that the campaigns does not have like one particular method that it will be like chances to get success, right? According to you, right? So what will you do when the client has a low budget, right? As you said, like some people have clients have very low budget, right?
Yeah.
So how can you manage that with low budget? With like how can you experiment on the ad campaign with that low budget?
So first things first is getting the clients buy-in on the budgets that you have, right? So you'll have to set some of the ground rules initially. So the client is saying that, oh, I want ROAS, return on ad spend is something which is extremely important to me. I don't want any kind of experimentation. Sorry to say, but then you will not be able to do any experimentation in that, right? But the thing is, if you're going back to the client and then saying, okay, we are already getting these audiences seem to be saturated because we are already running at a healthier coverage of these audiences. And now we'll have to venture out into newer audiences, right? Because we will also need to acquire new customers. And that is something which is not going to happen unless until you test out some of the other interests or some of the other behaviors as well, right? And when you go for those kind of test audiences, you will always have to have a separate test budget, right? Because like whatever budget that you have to run your regular performance, so we used to follow, let's say, 10 to 15% of our budgets used to go for experiments or innovation, right? So that is when you will have to, be upfront to the client, saying, okay, so this is a hypothesis. This is what this is what you're going after. This is the rationale behind us going after these audiences. What is your point of view on this? The client says that, yeah, this is a good audience for us to test out. You also need to tell them that this is the first time we are going after this audience. This may or may not work, right? So that you are not held accountable for driving ROAS on pilots. Nobody is going to hold you accountable for driving ROAS on pilots. Pilots may the only important criteria is whether you are hitting or missing, right? So whether the hypothesis is accepted or rejected. So you will have to have that criteria. Okay, so since this is a pilot, I may not have the leverage of machine learning on this one. So initially, I may see like let's say extremely fluctuating results. So first thing that you need to do is your pilot has to be long enough because Facebook needs about 7 days, or like let's say at least 50 conversion events within 7 days since the last significant edit at an ad set level to come out of your learning phase. So you'll have to tell him that, okay, so I want to run a pilot for at least 3 weeks time so that I give the system enough opportunity for learning. And once the system has learned, I also want to leverage on that learning and then seeing as to how much better performance can I drive because of that. So roughly 3 to 4 weeks of duration should be your pilot duration. And then the second thing is your audience has to be like not too broad or like let's say not too narrow, just like how we spoke right now. And then the third thing is you also have to take them or like take their buy-in that this may or may not fare well. But then like we need to vouch out for these ones because we are going after the newer audiences. So if you have done these things well, right, and like you have a regular routine to test out those innovations, experiments, and all. So probably after running 3 to 5 different ads, you will at least find one particular audience segment which might have done well, or like probably that would be a success. So once your pilot is a success, you can like move that from pilot to business as usual, and then you bump up your budgets on those, right? And then you keep looking for like let's say other ventures wherein you still sort of like go after.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
But yeah, so you can always follow some ground rules. So other than this, you can prioritize your audiences, right? Because we know that first party audiences, well, like let's say our own customers, if I'm reselling or if I'm cross selling or I'm upselling to my own audiences, I'm more likely to drive better performance because that person has already experienced my brand. So that person has been using my brand, or someone who buys repeatedly from me. So I know that my brand pool, that customer is higher. So the cost of me reacquiring or like let's say re-engaging that person is going to be lower as compared to going after a completely new audience about whom I don't have much information on, other than some of the interest segments that I'm going after. So probably you can prioritize. You can start with your existing customers, followed by like let's say people who are currently browsing your website, or high intent audiences on your website, basis their frequency on the page, or basis their time spent on your page. So you can create those segments and then reach out. So you're trying to kind of like refine your audience segments and increase the likelihood of conversion depending on what you know about that audience. So then accordingly you can prioritize. So first priority will be your first party audiences, followed by lookalikes, because they are the ones who exhibit similar behavior, and then Facebook uses machine learning to like that. And then you could look at prioritizing behavior over interests, because behavior is walking the talk versus interest is talking. And then look at whichever is doing well. And then but one thing is like you'll have to keep learning, keep testing, experimenting, and then keep looking at the data. So how is that yielding back? How exactly is that like shaping up into a bigger picture? But while you do this, you also need to be mindful of the fact that you can't make frequent changes, because the moment you make frequent changes, you will not be able to leverage the system's own learning. So you make some changes, put some strong rationale as to why are you making those changes, but after that, let the system also optimize on its own, and give the system some time to stabilize, and after that, you should see performance improvements. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. So in the interest of time, let us keep moving. Yeah. So now that we have seen, the tool walk-in, tool walkthrough, what are the things that you need to do for you to create those campaigns, campaign ads, as well as ads. We also need to understand some of the key metrics that brands usually track, right? So when you go for brand awareness as an objective, which appeared when we look at those 3 different pages of the funnel: awareness, consideration, and purchase. So what you see is your matrix to track. So the moment you give brand awareness as an objective, Facebook is going to give ad recall lift rate as the key result. So you will be measured for ad recall lift rate, which is brand awareness as an objective, right? Similarly, if you have engagement as an objective, in that case you will usually track cost per engagement, because that's what Facebook would try to maximize for, right? And then similarly, you could also look at some of the other derived metrics like engagement rate, and then accordingly see how good or bad your campaign is doing versus your overall average, right? Similarly, if you go for video views as an objective, then you look at cost per view or cost per through play. So what is through play? Through play is nothing but 15-second duration view of your video, or if your video is less than 15 seconds, in that case it takes the entire duration, right? So 15 seconds or the entire duration of the video, whichever is lesser, that gets counted as through play. So you could also look at cost per through play for understanding like how well has the audience engaged with your creative, right? Similarly, ROAS. So the moment you look at driving conversions, you could look at tracking ROAS, which is return on ad spends, and this is where you could tell Facebook that okay, I want to track conversion value and not necessarily just conversions. So the moment you look at conversion value, you look at ROAS as a key metric, which is return on ad spend. This is the formula, and so how do you get to this? That the total conversion value that you have gotten from your ads divided by total ad spend that you've done. So let's say if you have spent 100 rupees and then you have gotten 3 conversions, those 3 conversions have yielded you 500 conversion value. So 500 is the conversion value divided by 100. So ROAS is 5 or 500%, right? Similarly, cost per conversion is how much are you spending to get that one conversion. So that's why this is needed to track as well. some of the other metrics that a lot of brands track, this is like not just dependent on paid advertising, is earned media and sentiment score. So what is earned media? So think of this as, so in terms of your entire promotion, let's say you have got about 100 different mentions on social platforms for one particular media. So out of those 100 mentions, probably 80 mentions have come in from your side. So I'm brand XYZ and I am talking about a product from my own brand. So 80 of those mentions are coming in from brand XYZ, but other 20 are coming in from influencers. Those 20 could come in from users. Those 20 could come in from, like, let's say some of the other blog partners, they have written some blogs about us and then they have mentioned us. So the way to look at earned media is, what share of mentions are coming in from third-party people, so people who are not directly controlled by me, but then they are also talking about. So earned media will be like, let's say 20 divided by total mentions is 100. So that is one way of tracking your earned media. Or similarly, you could look at, so if you have gotten 20 mentions and you have gotten 80 mentions from your paid advertising, let's say you have spent 1 lakh rupees to get these 80 mentions, right? And how much would you have to spend to get, like, let's say those 20 additional mentions that you would have gotten? And then accordingly, you could look at that as, like, let's say, what is the media worth of mentions that you have gotten, and then you could choose to call that as an media. So different brands have got different ways of calculating earned media. And similarly, some brands also monitor sentiment score, which is nothing but look at how many of the mentions are positive, look at how many of the mentions have been negative, and look at your overall positive mentions minus overall negative mentions, and look at that delta. So how strongly are the positives overpowering negatives? Something to tell you, right? So these are some of the key metrics that brands track, or definitely take a close look at to understand how they do on social, right? And now, a very important piece, because we spoke about driving conversions. So we need to understand that people will never convert the first time they see a product, right? So what happens is, you show them an ad, they click on that ad, they go on to the landing page, they might spend some time going to the product detail page, they might go through multiple product detail pages, but they may not be sure yet as to which product do they want to buy. So they may drop off without finally completing a purchase. That's where retargeting becomes a very, very crucial point, because in my past experience, what I've seen, especially for fashion as a category or for some of the other categories, which are like, let's say, e-com specific, the share of conversions coming in from returning visitor is usually, like, let's say, much higher than share of conversions coming in from a first time visitor, right? So which means that we know that retargeting is quite valuable, and we need to sort of reinforce the messaging, or get that person multiple times on the website before that person finally takes the call to purchase, right? So that's the reason why retargeting is extremely important, and why dynamic retargeting. That is because relatability and personalization is extremely important. So someone who has browsed through a shoe product, he sees shoe on the ad. Someone who has browsed a fashion product, or someone who has browsed a t-shirt, he sees the same t-shirt on the ad, and that drives the recall factor, and then he's and that is the likelihood that person will click on the ad, come onto the website and complete the purchase. That's why dynamic retargeting is extremely important, right? And last but not the least, know when to stop. A lot of people, they go after those retargeting campaigns and keep on serving those ads, right? So many times I have myself been a victim to this. So I keep seeing the same ad, depending on a product that I browsed, and I keep seeing the same ad even 2 months after I had seen that product, right? So that is like over serving those frequencies. So what we usually see is, after going for a frequency of, like, let's say 5 to 6, wherein we are at least somewhat sure of the likelihood of that person noticing us, we stop and take stock of things. So look at this particular average frequency, do we see any results coming out of that? So even after that, also, if you're not getting CTRs, or the weekly CTRs are falling flat, then there's no point in going after that particular customer, because he has already made up his mind, or probably already made a purchase, right? So knowing when to stop also is extremely important for retargeting, because if you end up annoying that customer, that person may not ever come back to you. They know that I just hate this brand, because they just keep going overboard just to try and push a product and be salesy, right? Yeah, and then attribution windows, which you spoke about, and I also showed you that you could select 1-day click view versus 7-day. Attribution windows is basically just like you telling the system that, okay, I want to track, so up to how many days window am I going to sort of attribute a conversion to a campaign. So let's say if I'm running an ad today, then that person has seen my ad, he has clicked on my ad, and he converts 4 days later. I attribute that to my campaign. But if he attributes 15 days later, that is something which I will not be able to attribute because Facebook itself does not have that feature anymore. So earlier, the maximum attribution window that you could select for clicks was 28 days. But after iOS 14.5 update, that has been reduced to 7 days. And now you get only 2 options, 1 day or 7 days. You will have to select between these two. So it is always better that you select a 7-day window so that you also have that leeway or room to capture people who may take a call and probably come back and then buy within the same week, but not necessarily the next day. Right? Then what is click and view attribution? Click attribution is someone clicking on your ad and then going and purchasing. View attribution is someone has not clicked on your ad, but still that person is kind of like going back and purchasing on your site. And how does Facebook know this? Is because like Facebook Pixel is integrated on the website, and Facebook also knows about its own platform, right? So someone who is signed in and then browsing through the platform, and then if that person has seen the ad, Facebook already knows that the exposure has happened. And then even if that person doesn't click, but he goes onto the website and then buys it, Facebook can still connect this journey and then tell you that how much of the attribution is happening, right? And especially for tracking, there are a lot of tutorials, there are a lot of information available. So probably you can spend some bit of time to understand what are pixels, what are events, what are tags, how do you go about SDK integration if at all you're talking about apps and tracking app advertising. You will also have to figure out what kind of software development kits are brands talking about. So there has to be those kind of integrations so that they can track end-to-end within the app. And then offline events. Why is this important? Is because I also mentioned about those retail tracking. So people, they see your ad online, but then they are going to the store and then they are purchasing from there. You can always, so like track those kind of purchases. But for this, you will have to set up offline events and then kind of like push back those offline purchase details back. Right. So these are slightly advanced concepts. In the interest of time, I did not go through these. But if some of you are interested to know more about this, I would recommend that there are like very simple self-explanatory tools from Facebook Help. But in case after that also you're not able to understand, you can reach out to me for discussing anything specific which you might have on these. All right. So now that we have finished ads, of course, like the collaboration is not going to take a long time because line share, as I mentioned, would go towards paid activation through ads. So so let us spend some time on content collaboration. So typically, what we see is a lot of brands, they do a lot of product placements. You would have seen in a lot of music videos, brands like a lot of brands, they kind of like push their headgear, they kind of like push their eyewear. A lot of brands, they also end up pushing their brand in terms of the props and placements that they want to showcase within those videos, or like let's say within the web series and all. So all of those things go as product placement, right? So it is fairly simple. So you are seeing a scene wherein people are talking, and then the product itself is a part of the video itself, without any kind of an active support to that particular product. So people can see that the people who are acting, they are using that product. So it could be like, let's say a smartphone, it could be like, let's say eyewear, all of those things. So like that is something simple product placement. Versus brands can collaborate with a lot of these content players to create mini series, right? So when you go for these kind of mini series, these are like, let's say, usually in script integrations. So you might have observed a lot of these content creators, they create series in collaboration with brands, wherein they necessarily integrate a product into the conversation. So those products are integrated within the dialogue system. Wherein some person is saying, okay, so I use this product, this product is really great, but then that is so seamlessly integrated that it doesn't look like an ad. That is a part of the content itself, right? So that's what we call it as mini series. Usually we see those as in-script integrations. The level of integration is not as deep as a web series, but it is still better than product placements, wherein it's not just a very passive integration. There is some active involvement of the product within the script itself. And then we see something happening on the web series side, which is like full scale integration. So the popular examples could be what TVF had done for their web series Pictures that had come in long back, but then that was like one of the massively popular web series, one of my personal favorites, and which is done in collaboration with Kingfisher. After that, they also kind of like expanded their collaborations. They kept doing a lot of collaborations. They did one for Common Floor, which is like the permanent roommates. The other one they have done for a travel series scripting. So they have done that with Trivago. So these are, like, let's say, a full-scale integration wherein the script itself begins from the marketing brief that is given by the brands, and and then the brands are, like, let's say, so deeply invested and integrated into the script itself, right? So the brand managers have got, like, let's say, way more freedom in terms of figuring out, okay, like, let us take this script in a particular direction, and in terms of budgets, web series are massive, right? So they can run into multitude of crores, right? To, like, let's say, something like a mini series, you could still have to shell out somewhere around 15 to 20 lakhs per video, versus product placements. Typically, you don't go and crack deals for just like one product placement. You see at least 2 to 4 placements within a video itself, and that's why you would see their budgets also hovering that range. And then, of course, song integration is, like, let's say, you integrate your brand into a song. So depending on the scale at which you're doing that project, that can also hover or, like, range from lakhs to crores. All right. So yeah. So some examples. This was by Kingfisher. So this was a full-fledged web series they had done with yes. This was something which we had done back. So this was way back in 2014. It's next way back. But the thing is, so the point that I wanted to highlight is, like, content collaborations have been there for long. It is something not a new phenomenon. A lot of brands leverage this for, like, let's say, quite a lot of good stuff. So this is something which I was personally involved with, and then this one was something we had done to promote a selfie smartphone. And this was something which was done in collaboration with Being Indian, which is part of Culture Machine Media House, and really well received. And this is a music video integration that is more recent. This was published in January 2020. So this was a music anthem which described male friendship, male camaraderie, and it integrated back size. So that was the entry level beer variant, which was our answer to Kingfisher. So we were taking on Kingfisher. Kingfisher was a competition to us, right? So, like, all of these are examples of content collaborations with brands using this. Right. So now that we have seen content collaborations, let us spend some time on influencer, and then should be able to wrap the day. Because after this we'll have the campaign planning, but then I'll just, like, summarize some of the things that we need to look at. So on influencer collaborations, what are some of the things that brands definitely look at, right? Because influencers, in terms of the advertising spends, if a recent article is to be released during the festive season, all of the brands put together, they are estimated to spend about 600 crores on influencer marketing during the festive season itself. So influencer marketing has shot up like crazy in the recent past. The last 4 to 5 years itself, they have grown like really, really big time, right? And, like, in terms of, like, within subsegments of digital marketing, this is one of the fastest growing segments, and a lot of brands across categories, not just on fashion, but a lot of other education heavy brands are also leveraging influencers and influencer collaborations to a really good extent, and, like, do their storytelling, educate people, entertain people, and then like drive the messaging forward, and also garner a lot of heightened or stronger brand equity. Right. So the first thing that brands look at is brand fitment. A lot of influencers, they have a certain style of storytelling. They have got a certain persona. They have got a certain personality, and brands also have got a certain personality on social media. So the first rule of thumb that they see is, like, the kind of influencers they are collaborating with, that person needs to have a similar kind of a persona, similar kind of a style of storytelling, similar interests, so that user don't feel that this is something which is a paid advertising, right? Because this has to be a very, very seamless content flow, and that's why brand fitment is the first and foremost thing that a lot of brands see whenever they go for tie-ups. Second thing is they also look at, okay, so, like, if brand fitment is already there, and the influencer also cares about some of the purpose that the brand also stands for, in that case, what kind of engagement has the influencer brought in whenever the influencer has spoken about those? Right? So, like, let's say if I talk about a brand like if I talk about a fashion brand like Puma, and then I talk about some fashion influencers, whenever they have spoken about their fashion sense or fashion style, or like what we're talking about weekend outfits, what kind of engagements have they driven on those kind of content posts, right? So the moment you look at engagement metrics, you also get a sense of how close are the influencers followers with that kind of content pillar, right? And stronger the engagement metrics, the better the chances that you will be able to sort of like have good results coming in from this particular content builder, the influencer, because his followers also seem to like this content, right? And then the third thing is, of course, like we also need to get the numbers right. A lot of times, a lot of agencies, they come back and they try to sell stories which says, okay, so this is an influencer who has got 1 million followers. So every time he posts something, you will get 1 million views. That usually doesn't happen. So depending on the type of influencer, the kind of engagement rates that that person is getting, you may see your reach varying from, let's say, somewhere 5 to 10% of the follower base of an influencer to a certain extent, it can also go up to 150% of the follower base of certain influencers. And why is that happening? Is because on Instagram, you can also get additional reach coming in from your explore section, from your discover section, all of those things. So that's why, some of the influencers who have really aced their content game, they are able to sort of like get like much better reach as compared to their followers. Right. So that's why we need to get our numbers right. Extremely important. And then the fourth thing is we need to be realistic about our expectations. Not every other post that we do for an influencer collaboration that is going to go viral, right? So we'll have to be patient. We'll have to follow a lot of the guidelines. We'll have to ensure that we are taking enough care and enough checks and balances in place so that the content is not a bad content, right? But unfortunately, there is no such rule mantra which tells you that if you do these things, the content is going to go viral. Unfortunately, we're still struggling to get that, and I don't think you'll ever be able to get to that stage wherein you can predict which is going to go viral and which is not. But one thing is you can definitely reduce the likelihood of your content being bad, because there are a lot of things which we discussed in the last class about content guidelines and all. That's how you can sort of like stay in the safe zone. So of course, like keeping things close to real, the more you bring out the raw side of the influencer, and the more authentic it seems, the better it is. And then users are also smart enough to figure out what is authentic and what is. So that's why it is always better to keep things close to real. You're not supposed to overdo, because many a time brands go overboard, and then you can clearly make out that this is a sales or a promoting post. You're not supposed to overdo. Storytelling becomes extremely critical. So it's not that your first word of the influencer's post starts with the brand. The moment that happens, you know that it's a branded content. So storytelling should be given much more priority as compared to branding. And then the fourth thing is conversations matter, right? So if there is an influencer who is getting me a lot of comments, a lot of relevant comments about the post that the influencer is posting about. Let's say we are talking about sustainable fashion. A lot of people are talking about sustainable fashion. So I know that people care about sustainable fashion. So if that influencer is able to drive conversation, if that influencer is able to get people talking, that is a much stronger point for me as compared to, let's say, some of the other influencers who might get those likes. Those likes may also come in because the influencer has a pretty face. That those likes may also come in because of tons of other things which may not be directly related to the brand. So the brand may miss out on, like, let's say, understanding like what actually drove this kind of engagement. A lot of brands miss out on doing that kind of a post campaign assessment, right? But there are still limitations on this particular piece, and that is something which is like extremely valuable. So influencers is a highly uncertain medium, because you don't really know as to whether you will hit 5% of the follower base or you will hit 150% of the follower base. So the room is like extremely high. So there is a high uncertainty. There's low room for control. Once the influencer has already posted, you can't do much about it. It's not like your regular ads wherein you can optimize, you can see how the numbers you can then do something. No, the influencer has posted, it's already out. There is nothing that you can do about it, right? Unit pricing wise, many times you see influencers to be on the costlier side, but when you add, the fact that you're leveraging a popular face, you're also leveraging on that person's equity. You're also sort of like getting access to that person's follower base, plus you're also adding the cost of content creation. Many times you see that influence could be like somewhat at a level playing with respect to the paid advertising, right? Yeah. And then similarly, just like how we saw for influencers, we could also see a lot of network collaborations happening, right? So these days, pages like, there are a lot of joke pages on Facebook, there are a lot of pages on Instagram. So they have also started doing a lot of branded content. So and the way they do branded content, it is extremely difficult to figure out whether that is branded or non-branded. But a lot of brands leverage these kind of networks. Because these days you can typically reach out to a meme network, and then you can get your content flouted across about 250 odd such pages across Facebook and Instagram, which kind of like gives you that kind of a like, let's say, wider spread in about a day or in about 2 days time. Also giving a sense of like, let's say, this content going like being viral, popular, and after that, if if regular users pick that up and then sort of like take that onto the next level, that is definitely going to be extra brownie points, right? And then similarly within influencers also, you can also leverage mini influencers, influencer network. You can activate a group of influencers who can post out in coordination with each other, so that everything looks as if like this is something where like influencers have got an interest into the brand. But of course, like executing something where people never get to know that this is something paid promotion is extremely difficult, especially with a lot of the guidelines which are coming into the fore. Influencers these days, they are supposed to divulge upfront that this is a paid promotion, this is a paid ad or a sponsored ad. And unfortunately, that has taken a bit of credibility factor which is there with influencers, but nevertheless, this is still an interesting way of doing storytelling as compared to just the brand blowing its own ground. Right, so this is something which we had done for Budweiser back in 2020. So we created a page for giving interesting hacks around how can you sort of like look at dating in the new norm, or how can you look at partying in the new norm. So this gave people a lot of inspirations around how do you go about sort of like behaving yourself in the post-pandemic world. So this number is quite dated. So I think like we ended up getting something like 5,000, 6,000 posts on this. So this is something which we have done. So we collaborated with a lot of influencers, plus content creators to get this word out, plus a lot of meme also. So this was like it's across the board, 360 marketing, right? Yeah, and then summarizing campaign planning. So you always begin with an objective. So once you have the objective ready, you also figure out like what exactly is your target audience. And once your objective and target audience, both of these are set, you typically also arrive at given your objective, given your target audience, and also understanding how much of budget do you have, you would also be able to put out your platform mix. Let's say a lot of brands, when they are starting up, they may not have a lot of budget, so then they would just like focus on just one platform and then try and maximize the impact of that platform. But some of the other brands who still have the leeway of selecting multiple platforms, they can look at the platform mix, probably have multiple platforms depending on the objective plus the target audience, and then accordingly have those platform mixes, and then create individual social media strategies to sort of like deliver the objective, right? And then once you have these ones, right? So once you're clear on the objective, you should be able to look at what is the key metric, what is the campaign success criteria that you decide on. So let's say if your objective is brand awareness, you would look at ad recall lift rate. But then what is the metric? So what is the campaign success criteria? So your ad recall lift rate should be greater than a certain number, right? So you then decide on that target, and then you set that as a KPI, and then you say that the entire team is going to go after this target. So then you look at key metrics, and then you also look at KPIs and targets. So that target setting is also done. Then once these ones are done, then you get into like the deeper level understanding. So your PG is at a very broad level. Now, when you break it down into audience segments, what are some of the key audience segments that you're going to go after? So you break down your audience segments, and then you go after the creative planning. Whether this is going to be a 360-degree approach. Are you going to start with awareness first, then drive consideration, and then drive purchase? In which case you're going to go for a creative planning. You have to plan for some videos, which can be at the top of the funnel and the awareness piece. Then get into consideration, wherein you retarget those people depending on their engagement videos, and then you try and drive them further down the funnel. And similarly, so like take them to the website, and then to retargeting, try and sort of like convert it. So that creative planning, you will have to think from that perspective, and then accordingly set up the campaign, run the optimizations. Of course, you will have to do your optimization from the campaign, but then ensure that you are giving enough time for the system to kind of learn on its own, and then stabilize performance. So that is something in mind. And once all of these things are done, then you look at reporting and learning. Learning is extremely important next. So irrespective of whether your campaign is a success or failure, you should always look at your failures to be excellent sources of learning, right? Because you might have definitely ignored some things, may not be intentionally, but then that is something which might have come at the hindsight. So you need to take those learnings and then probably have that as a repository somewhere, so that next time around when you plan these campaigns, you also have your chinks covered, because you already have that learning now, so that next time you don't make the same mistake, right? And then as I said, digital marketing has always been about testing, learning, and then sort of like using that learning itself to kind of like improve performance over time. So you like, so this is something which is a very, very top level sort of a approach to let's say campaign planning. How exactly do you see through all the way from campaign planning till like let's say end of campaign report and everything. Right, and then I think we have got a project. I would like to talk about this. Are you on?
Hello.
Hey, Rumpi.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
can little bit
Yeah.
talk about project. Yeah.
Okay, so okay, all right. So I think you will be getting a project. I'm not sure whether AntWak team has already given that to you or not, but you will have to execute an end-to-end Facebook ads campaign for AntWak, right? So they would have some masterclass running. I'm not sure whether it's going to be cybersecurity masterclass or like probably.
Yeah. This is cybersecurity masterclass only.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So there's an upcoming cybersecurity masterclass which will be conducted by top professionals, industry experts, and the objective for us will be to get people enroll for this particular masterclass. Right? So this is the objective. So objective is extremely clear. And like what would be the project deliverables? We are definitely going to look at. So what are the things that you have considered to kind of like devise a campaign strategy, right? And we are also going to look at your execution, right? Because you will have to execute end-to-end plan. You will have to set up the campaigns. You will have to set up the audiences. You will have to sort of like make those creatives, devise those creatives. Launch those campaigns, ad sets, look at the numbers. How have the numbers been? And then you should be able to measure performance of your campaign, and then also read the performance, and then also tell us that okay, so like what have been your done? Okay, like let's say for whatever duration that you run the campaign, you would have some performance. So what we would be looking at is like what are the ways by which we can improve performance based on your learnings of working on this particular campaign, right? So like these would be some of the key factors that we would be looking at, evaluate your project submissions, and I think you can always refer to AntWak learning platform for further detailed instructions on this. You can always reach out to coordinators to sort of like guide you for just any other clarity or clarification that you need, right? So
Yeah.
now that we are done with this as well, yeah. So
Guys, Susovan, shall I add some point? Like this is
yes,
this is a group project, guys, and this is a paid like Facebook ads, right? So we'll be giving you some budget, and so we'll be provide the groups also, and one member of the group will be using their mail ID and everything for the project, and we'll share all details in the Discord and in the LMS also. And I will share everything by Tuesday. Actually, our upcoming masterclass session will be on 7th or 9th October. I'm not sure, but for that session you have to do the ad, you have to run the campaign. So we'll share all details, and middle of the week we'll do some demo and doubt clearance sessions also. So yes.
okay, all right. Yes, I see some of the chat wherein, of course, this was something which came in at 4:16. I just like saw this right now. So she was asking for us to go a bit slow. Yeah. So see, the thing is, the objective is like while we are also trying to cover a decent enough depth of the material, we also want to look at, like, let's say, giving you a good sense of width as well. So we are covering quite a bit of things, which you need to keep in mind whenever you're thinking of social media planning or social media advertising. So probably that is the reason why you feel that I was going a bit fast. That is also because you also have to be mindful of the time, and at the same time, cover a decent bit so that you also have a good understanding of this entire ecosystem, as well as, like, let's say, what are some of the factors that you need to keep in mind. So that is the reason probably you may feel that things are going a bit faster. But now that you have got this context, in case you have got any other doubts, or like probably some of the areas where you want to get a deeper understanding at, I would appreciate that you reach out to me over the other forms of communication, because I think that way I'm available, and we could take it up separately. Like, this is something that's important because we have to give the entire, if not entire, a decent coverage in terms of width as well as depth of the subject. Yeah. I think we still have room for a couple more questions. We are overboard by about 15 minutes, but I think probably we will spend about 5 more minutes and take a couple more questions.
Yeah, guys, you can ask questions, and feedback link is there. Please provide feedback, guys, please. It's a request. And for this project, you will get 2 weeks of time. Yes, and Susovan will be doing the class on 10th October. So yeah, you have lots of time. So yes.
Yeah.
Guys, you can ask question and please provide feedback. Else we can wrap up the session. I think it's 6:16. No questions? Acha, Neha, yes.
Actually, we discussed this thing in the start where difference between traffic and landing page. Actually, that wasn't very clear for me. Can you explain it again?
Yeah. So the thing is, especially if you go to Facebook, right, and then if you choose traffic as an objective, because like traffic will be a sub option which you get under configuration subjective. So when you choose traffic as an objective, and when you're setting up the campaign, right? So at that time, it will still ask you what exactly do you want to optimize the campaign for, right? So at that time, you get an option to choose between traffic and landing page. So the difference is, you will have to set up your pixel on the website so that Facebook also understands as to what exactly is happening after someone is clicking on your ad and then going onto your website, right? So if your pixel is not set up on the website, so that is a special case. For this particular case, it will not apply because the pixel is already set up. But there are some brands who are still, like, let's say, probably latching onto this one, and then their objective is to, drive as much traffic to the website. But because of some or the other reason, if the pixel is not set up properly, in that case, like when you are, going and selecting on like what exactly do you want to optimize the campaign for, you say that, you will be able to optimize for traffic, but not for landing page views. That is because, so then Facebook will treat your link clicks or the banner clicks only as traffic, and landing page views is something that the system will not be able to optimize for, so that will not be available for you because the pixel is not implemented properly, right? So I just wanted to give this clarification so that you are also able to appreciate as to this is how Facebook can like differentiate between these based on the campaign setup, or like, let's say, some of the background setup that you may or may not have done on the campaign for the end-to-end tracking. Yeah. Any other question?
I think no questions so far. So
Okay.
yeah. So thank you so much, Susovan. And today's session was so like interesting and interactive also. And thank you guys for the questions you asked in the session. So I'll see you, Susovan, on 10th October then.
Sure, Rumpi.
For this discussion.
Talk to you guys soon. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Have a wonderful rest of Sunday that we have.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
hope that you are able to appreciate, like, let's say, whatever we learned today, and then probably utilize these for your campaign planning as well as execution. So we're going to discuss a lot of these things on 10th of October when we okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye, Susovan.
Bye.